Hello and welcome to a Week 8 edition of Establish the Bets. My name is Adam Levitan. Each and every Friday night this year, I am joined by Matthew Davidow of Deck Prism of The Huddle to talk all things betting sides and totals this season. So, you guys, for those of you who don't know who Matt is, one of the most successful NFL bettors, then turns his attention to the other side of the counter where he is now taking on all bets, big bets, anyone who wants to bet for the odds making company. Deck Prism recently merged with Huddle. Matt, how's it going tonight?
Good. See ya.
All right. I'm curious how the market's responding to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady face planting. I mean, these are guys that I assume the public, the general market, has been betting and pounding for years. I mean, all my idiot friends from home, oh, Tom Brady's playing. They don't care what the line is. Bet Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers playing. Who cares what the line is? Bet Aaron Rodgers. I know the whole market doesn't operate that way, but I have to think a big segment of it. How has the market responded to the trials and tribulations of Packers and Bucks this season?
But it's funny. Out of every year, I think I predict to myself this will be the year that Brady drops off some, or Aaron Rodgers is not quite as good. And since I've been trying it every year for like 10 years, I'm finally right this year.
Exactly. I mean, I talked about it last week. Who are the Packers to be a road favorite against anyone, even the Commanders? And shout out to me. I should be setting the lines for Deck Prism outright for the Commanders.
You were all over it. Now the Commanders are 3-point dogs to back up quarterbacks from Texas. So
yes, we'll get to that in a second here. All right. On a serious note, the Eagles line this week is 11. And if you've watched the Eagles play at all this year, they have been incredible. Actually, Eagles line looks like 9 now. I'm sorry. Oh no, this was a look ahead. Sorry. Here we go. Eagles line is 11, home against the Steelers. If you've watched the Eagles play at all this year, they have been incredible in the first half and been bad, I would say, or mediocre at best offensively in the second half of games. Is that just because they're letting their foot off the gas, Matt? And how do you factor that stuff into a line?
I mean, usually I would just claim short sample to that sort of thing, especially a team with like good coaching. There should be no good reason for it. However, with the Eagles, even with the short sample, I noticed this in the Arizona game, and I think we'll see it again, especially as they play closer games, which obviously might not be this week. But Hurts in a passing situation against a blitz, that's no good. That's not what you want. And for a team as good as the Eagles, that's kind of a big hole in the NFL if you can't convert a third and four, with an empty set. And right now, the Hurts of the Eagles can't. They almost have to run in those situations right now. So I do think that's what's hurting them in the second half, particularly because they only a couple games too. They did have a couple of offensive line injuries in the Arizona game as well, but it was really Hurts. It wasn't the offensive line that caused those issues.
We haven't talked about second half lines at all on this show. Is there like a big market of second half lines? Because I always hear people talking about them, but it's usually sharps. I don't know. Are casuals betting second half lines? And is there an edge here on the Eagles stuff in the second half, do you think?
I don't think there's an edge, but the market for live betting is huge. And that's what my company does too.
Right.
We're the leaders in the live marketplace. We do the Pinnacle NFL and college football lines that get copied around the world. So yeah there's a big market, and I like to call the second half the longest timeout because for us it's just like one of 25 timeouts you can bet. But used to be second half was all there was. So it's funny too. They have you see the second half line obviously you mentioned, and like a halftime now, you'll see a second half line that's just for the second half. You also see the live line. Well, they're the same. And it's funny because a few years ago, whenever kind of we started, whenever Deck Prism started, I said, I'm getting rid of that second half legacy. That's dumb. There's no reason to have to like recalculate it. Just put the live line up.
Mm-hmm.
If the score is 20-10 and the team down by 10 is minus a half, well, then the line's 19 and a half. Mm-hmm. Easier to think about, easier to calculate. Then you don't have to remember what the scores at halftime and know what to root for. To me, this was like the most obvious thing ever. You have them both up. Who the heck would? Well, I'll tell you, everybody likes to play the second half legacy. They're used to it. That's what they're the better bettors. The databases spit out the second half numbers. People like the second half lines. I guess they're not going anywhere in America anytime soon.
Okay. The Broncos are going back to Russ Wilson this week. I think you were actually on it. Like, I think the market probably did overreact to Brett Rippon in there for Russ Wilson, but Broncos still shot themselves in the foot yet again, did not get the cover against the Jets. Now the market is moving on the Russ news. I saw some Jaguars minus 3.5. This game is in London, Now I see Jaguars 2.5. How do you think about how the market's reacting to Russ getting back in there for the Broncos?
I don't think this had much to do with Russ. I think Russ was likely to play to start with. The line was just too high. Like the Broncos are not that bad to be 40% on a neutral field to Jacksonville. Now, the one thing I'll say about the Broncos is their third of all the things that have gone wrong for the Broncos this year. It's possible that their fourth down play calling has been the absolute worst. Maybe highlighted by the 4th and 1 inch like slant out combination they ran without even a run possibility in the overtime game against the Colts. But over and over again, the Broncos third down, the play calls, the protections, like somebody messes up on every single third down. If you didn't look at third downs as a more important down, and I do think you should, then you actually have the Broncos as better than average on offense despite Russ's obvious struggles.
So third down and red zone have been absolutely egregious for the Broncos this year. It's hard to throw that stuff out because like Hackett just might be a freaking dolt, you know what I mean? But I hear what you're saying. Like they're not as bad as it seemed. And yeah, the 3.5 was clearly too high. I think 2.5 here in London does indeed make sense to me.
Hackett might be a Hackett.
Hackett might be a Hackett. Exactly. I want to talk about a couple totals. So the Las Vegas New Orleans total, I thought opened 47. Now, this might have been a soft opener. Now it's up to 50 in Las Vegas New Orleans. That's a lot. Okay. And then also in Miami and Detroit, we're talking about 50, 51.5. This line keeps going up for a Tua versus Jared Goff matchup. I'm curious if you think these totals have gotten high on these games, and what do you think about them?
I actually think both of those totals are correct, but yeah, I do get a kick out of your disdain for Tua and Goff. Not exactly Allen and Mahomes, eh?
I mean, this is the same total as an Allen Mahomes game. This Tua Goff game is the same total, almost. It was like 54 in I guess in Mahomes Allen.
Right. Well, another way you could look at it, though, rather than looking at it as a Goff and Tua game, you could look at it as a Tyreek Hill, Jaden Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and DeAndre Swift game. If you look at it from that standpoint, those are better skill players, and obviously the Detroit defense somewhat speaks for itself.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So you think 51.5 here is right?
Yeah, we made it 52.5, kind of low, pretty close, low confidence. So yeah, I think that the totals are fine.
Do you think that fantasy players should be placing so much emphasis on game totals when making their DFS lineups? Like people are just going to say, oh, it's 51.5. I got to get a bunch of guys from this game, period. Is that the right way to think about it?
Well, I think, there's obviously two DFS games. There's the cash game and the game where you have to have the absolute best team. If you're talking about like a millionaire team, I read a fantastic article by the new guy, I forget his name, you just said it before the show too, but at ETR, I read a fantastic article before the season that was talking about, he looked at just the DFS data, short sample, but how many of the, I keep wanting to say ultimate lineup, that's not the word you use for like the absolute best
optimal.
lineup.
Yeah, the optimal.
Include players from these games with really high totals. And, one thing he pointed out, and you pointed this out, was it's non-linear. The chance of having a, say, 2 to 3 percentile game, like just 70 points or whatever, and particularly when you're adding the touchdowns, is a lot higher with the 51.5 than the 41. And I don't know how that really plays into the game strategy of the tournaments, where obviously also I think it's not like it's going to be, oh wow, look at this idea, I'm going to stack Tua with Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Imagine that's going to be fairly popular.
Well, I guess what I should have asked is, how are totals originated? How do you make a total? I think most people understand how you make a line. You get a power ranking for every team. You start comparing what you think goes into a power ranking. But for totals, I'm not sure people understand how they would even go about making a total from scratch.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of people had trouble with totals. I mean, we used to make totals with algorithms, and there was always issues. And now that we have these granular simulations, the game just sims, and that's the total. It's the same for the line. It's way better than a lot more accurate, obviously, than the power rating system is able to include nuances as far as how the teams relate to each other, past what's getting ahead or not getting ahead, et cetera. That's how we make all of our live lines and such. But more toward what you're saying. And what goes into it? I mean, you have efficiency, explosiveness, there, variance, pace. One thing that I always thought was interesting about totals, and obviously bookmakers tend to be scared of totals. Meanwhile, bettors tend to not do like the larger betting groups. I think for the most part, better with size and totals. And I think a lot of that, there's just a lot of noise in totals. When you think about it, the two coaches could get together and just make every game go. I mean, if they want it to go over, it goes over. If they want to go under, it goes under. You can't do that with sides. When you're trying to win, you're trying to win.
Mhm.
But like those fourth down decisions, and we're always figuring out when to have lines up or not, or how to set the lines to the fourth down. And one of the things I'm always telling my guys is it almost doesn't make much difference for the side. Where it matters is the total. Whether the team's going to go for it or punt them, they feel it's huge for the total.
Yep.
When a coach can make that big of a, difference on the final result of a bet just from the making a decision, it obviously presents a lot of noise.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's talk about Sam Ehlinger's NFL debut here. What do you think about Ehlinger versus Matt Ryan versus the spread? We do have a large sample of Sam Ehlinger from college at the University of Texas. He's played a lot of preseason, but he's never played in the regular season. What do you think about this Washington Indy game?
I always have a strong opinion on quarterbacks, and it's actually one time where I really don't. I've seen him in preseason. He looks slow. Looks like the game's fast for him. He obviously runs well, though, and this is a pretty good matchup. I also tend to think if they're putting him in, me, I give so much credit to coaches versus like guys like us sitting on a couch. What can I do? Watch a handful of plays that I don't even know the context from in preseason. Matt Ryan's healthy. Their culture's not out of it, but the Colts still feel like they're going to give him a shot and put him, put Ehlinger to play. To me, that's valuable information that should not be discounted. I do think that's one reason the line is, where it's at. Whereas if Ryan was actually hurt and they was like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And then he's in, I think the line would be lower.
Yeah, there's some 2.5s or 3s out there. Any sense of where that might go? 2.5, 3 right now.
I don't think anybody's going to be lining up to delay 3 with this set of Colts with I think you want to call him Erlinger. I know that's not his name. Like
Ehlinger, yes, Ehlinger.
So I guess it might creep down, but I don't have a good read on it.
All right, we've talked a lot about Seattle on this show. Geno Smith, who you have repeatedly disrespected, Geno Smith goes down to LA and beats Justin Herbert relatively easily, even though DK Metcalf got hurt early, even though Tyler Lockett was banged up. Are you ready to say now that you've been wrong about Geno Smith and Seattle is for real? They are now a 3-point home favorite against the Giants.
Well, that's a stretch, but I will say I wanted to bring this up because I know I've been adamant a couple of weeks that Geno's really not playing that well. Last week I watched it was a late game. There weren't many late games. I watched it play, and man, I was so impressed with a few of those plays that Geno made. Geno's playing well. The Seahawks offense is playing well. The defense, considering their talent, is playing way over their heads. That being said, still think they're way overrated in the market. Don't think this is exactly a playoff team just yet. I like the very, very well-coached Giants this week at Seattle.
Okay, Davidow's on the Giants this week. This is painted 3 everywhere right now. This seems like a game that just like never moves off 3. I don't know. Do you have any sense there?
I'm gonna guess it goes down game day, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Seattle's getting a lot of love right now for Seattle for good reason, as we said.
Yep. The look-ahead line on that Atlanta-Carolina game was 7. Now it's down to 4. Obviously, if you knew that the Panthers were going to somehow beat the Bucks as a 13-point dog, you would have said, oh, obviously, I'll just bet the look-ahead line. I'm curious what you think about the look-ahead line as like a market that maybe people should be looking at more and how they should think about betting look-ahead lines. Because I don't even how do I know what Tampa is going to do against Carolina this week, let alone what they're going to do in 2 weeks? You know what I mean?
Well, not that I look at it. It's fine. I have a few thoughts on look-aheads. One, a few years ago when we started, one of the things that I wanted to do right off the bat, I'm like, why isn't every game up all the time? Like before the season starts, why aren't we deck prism operators? Why aren't we posting lines on every game the whole time? What's the difference? I might as well get it up, get something up, take some bets. Heck, if I like to leave them up when the games are like, who cares? big quarterback gets hurt. Well, it's not like you're going to notice. Someone's going to say the quarterback's hurt. Well, you hit a button, you freeze those games, you take a. Think of how often someone's going to say, "Oh, look how good this team's playing. Let me go bet them next week," or "Let me go." I always thought for futures in the preseason, best time to have them up during preseason. That's when your bettors are actually watching the game at your computer, ready to bet. Last thing you want is not have the product up at that point. So but honestly, we tried it, and there's just no interest. Nobody plays them. So there's like basically no market for these things. So the places that are putting them up, you've got, some trader. I'm sure they're not putting their very best odds makers on this stuff because, again, there's no market for it. So I'm sure a lot of these are all over the place. It's funny. We talked about this earlier today. I actually meant to look for some and point out one or two for next week. I didn't. So I don't have, maybe for next week, or if a listener or two wants to toss some out there, we can, I'm happy to evaluate a couple. How to beat them? Just think about what will the line be Sunday afternoon, and assuming nobody plays, and I think that most sharp NFL bettors with decent power ratings would probably do pretty decent look aheads. As far as this spring goes, I think it was probably honestly okay. It was a huge win for Carolina as far as their market standpoint. They went from a tanking team to clearly trying and playing well on both lines of scrimmage last week.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and it's down to 4 now. I do think this is I think Atlanta's going to play well and win the game here. That's my if I was running Deck Prism right now, I would shade the line to try to get Carolina money because I do think Atlanta will win.
Oh, I mean, we can make a small Adam Levitan air move here.
Oh, here we go. Do not change the line.
Adam likes Atlanta. Give Adam a couple cents.
No, I know. Now you're going to get a ton of
action.
All
right. I'll let the computer handle the line. We'll let Adam do the DFS.
Oh God. Craig says Cardinals -3.5 versus Seahawks seems surprising next week. Yeah, I mean, if the Seahawks go out and beat the Giants, will they really be a 3.5 point dog at Arizona? I don't know there, but
I mean, a few weeks ago, Arizona was what 56, 57% in Seattle. And yes, I mean, obviously Seattle beat them, and since then Seattle's been a little bit better, but this is kind of in the ballpark based on that, I would say.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm always lower. I'm always lower than market on Arizona. So, I mean,
Yeah.
What it is. Oh, two more small things I wanted to hit on before we get out of here. Mac Jones is back. The 5-2 Jets who have played good ball, man. No Breece Hall, which I don't know if that matters, but 5-2 Jets are a home dog to Mac Jones and this Patriots team, which just got embarrassed by the Bears. That line actually surprised me a lot. What do you think about this Jets-Patriots line?
I like the Patriots, Adam. I think that I don't think the Jets are very good. Jets have obviously had they benefited from some weak teams playing them and some good luck.
But who are the Patriots?
Patriots are an average team.
Ugh. See,
Mac Jones is an above average quarterback when healthy. He'll probably be healthy. He was obviously not right last week. I mean, he couldn't even move. I think he'll be way healthier this week. Look a lot better. Murray, I'm not sure if you watched the game against Baltimore, but he played really, really good versus Baltimore the game he got hurt.
Yeah. I actually thought his ankle looked fine last week. He didn't throw the ball well at all, but he was moving okay.
I think he didn't throw well because of the ankle. I thought the ankle looked really bad. Speaking of which, Tannehill is interesting this week because the Tannehill it's a right ankle sprain, and those are the ones that get you. It's that plant foot, and I remember Roethlisberger had one of these a couple years ago. Like every pass was like a soft toss at 5 feet over the guy's head. If Tannehill plays, I expect Tannehill to be not good.
Yeah,
I think this is basically priced in here.
You think it's priced in? Yeah.
I think Tennessee should be a solid 3 if Tannehill was healthy, and we don't know that he's not healthy. It's just something to look for, especially when he gets out there.
I mean, Tannehill did not practice on Wednesday or Friday this week. They're calling him a game time decision. We'll see there on Sunday. But
he's gonna play. Yeah.
You think he's going to play?
Oh, I mean, 90+%.
Okay. I'm actually surprised on the Jets thing, and not to harp on this, but you're all about the offensive line and defensive line. Jets offensive line and defensive line, I think, has overperformed this season.
Well, I mean, the Jets defensive line is good. The Jets have actual talent on the front seven, and then Sauce Gardner's played amazing. I don't really want to knock the Jets defense, but the offense is atrocious. Like offense is bottom 3, bottom 4. The offense, like maybe they beat expectations, but that's just because the expectations were so low. They haven't been good at all, and I wouldn't expect them to be able to move the ball at all against the Patriots next week. Although the Bears, with also a bad offensive line, I mean, did you see the line of scrimmage Monday night? The Bears were just killing them over and over and over again in the second half, just running it down their throat. And you never know in the NFL, or any sport really for that matter.
Last one I wanted to hit on is the Monday night game, Bengals-Browns. So we've been working on our projections for Cincinnati. And one thing that we did with Jamar Chase out was lower their pass rate. In other words, hey, we don't have Jamar Chase. Let's try to go back to running the ball a little more, because they were extremely pass heavy recently with Chase and Boyd and Higgins. I'm curious if you bake that into totals at all. And do you think Jamar Chase matters for the line, for play calling? I mean, it's rare that non-quarterback stuff, I think, matters at a big level, but Jamar Chase is such a baller. What do you think about the Chase injury?
I do think Jamar Chase is worth a few percent, and I do think he's worth something of the total. I don't know that it'll actually cause them to run more, because it's not like they were passing because they couldn't run. And they've got I rather like the coaching staff, and they probably like, well, wait a second, we have a really good quarterback. We're actually pass protecting kind of okay. We've got two fantastic receivers, or one now, I guess. Although Tyler Boyd's not bad.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just stick to our strength. Nixon's good in the pass game. Why start every set of down 2nd and 9?
Right.
So I it's funny because I read that. I read you guys' take on that, and I thought about it, and I was like, I don't know. Like, obviously, if you have to bet one way or the other from the previous expectations, there's only one way to go. So it's not like you can say, well, they're going to pass more with Chase out. But so will it really change the game plan or the play calling? I don't think so, honestly. I think it'll make very little to no difference in what they do.
That's interesting. I think I have less respect than it sounds like you do for Zach Taylor, who I think has done some mind-numbingly dumb things in terms of play calling. But I could see him just be like, oh my God, like literally turtling. Oh, we don't have Jamar Chase. 1st and 10. Let's give it to Joe Mixon. Like I don't have a lot of respect for that guy, but maybe you do. So
I like him more, I guess. You get to the Super Bowl with that offensive line last year, I give you some respect.
Yeah. Well, it was all Burrow, man. They started throwing the ball a ton, and it was like, Burrow is just
Burrow's so really good.
Oh, I love Burrow. I love Burrow. Love Burrow. All right.
If he played for the Lions, we'd be set.
Oh God. I can't even think about all the Lions futures I have. It's like every time I log into my accounts, I'm like, oh, now my pending bets, I got to look at all this Lions stuff for the next 6 months.
I mean, they're not going to win the division or anything, but the season wins is, I think, far from dead. There's not a lot of good teams, and they're not that bad.
I hope so. They need to beat Miami to keep the win total stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And they're like 36% there.
Yeah,
so I guess
I have like alt win totals on the. I'm a mess with the Lions stuff. Anyways, this is not about me.
You should have bought the games. Get them down like over 2.5. You're alive. Thanks, Adam.
It's not about my problems. This is about helping everybody else. Anyways, that is going to do it for another Establish the Bets show, Week 8 edition. Make sure you're following Matt on Twitter at Davidow Matthew. I'll be back on Sunday morning for subscribers with Silva to talk through our last minute thoughts before the DFS slate locks. For Matt, for producer Adam, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.